Namaste. Before we begin, I have a request. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, English Behen Ke Dil Se, and ring the bell icon. That would really help. Bahut dhanyavad. In December 2019, the Indian Parliament passed the Citizenship Amendment Act. This act amends the 1955 Indian Citizenship Law, providing citizenship to those people who have fled to India after being religiously persecuted for their minority faiths while living in the Islamic states of Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Pakistan between 1948 and December 2014. In this video, I will be describing the harrowing story of the Hindus from Bangladesh. Before 1947, India was a much bigger country than it is today, including what is now known as Pakistan and Bangladesh. It was ruled by the British, who counted amongst their concerns at the time the following. Number 1, the Soviet Union and anything to do with communism. Number 2, dependable sources of oil to fuel British homes and industries. And number 3, Palestine and crushing Israel's independence bid. Appeasing Muslims could help the British with all three of these issues. Therefore, while they were ruling India, they took steps to empower Muslims and weaken Hindus. This happened particularly strongly in Bengal, which is previously where the British had held their centre of power. For example, in 1909, they created separate voting electorates. They reserved disproportionately high numbers of seats for Muslims. In Bengal, 117 of the 250 assembly seats were exclusively determined by Muslims. From 1935, Bengal was ruled by a coalition of two Muslim parties. The disproportionate power given to Muslims was the reason why India was partitioned, creating an Islamic state of Pakistan. Pakistan at first existed in two halves. East Pakistan, which was formed from the eastern part of Bengal, which is now called Bangladesh, and West Pakistan, which is now called just simply Pakistan. In exchange for creating a Muslim nation, Britain could keep its military officers in the region and created an ally with whom it could counter communism from the Soviet Union and China. Also, Britain hoped that they would gain support from oil-rich Middle Eastern countries for Britain's stand in Palestine. The UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights was created in 1948. The declaration asserted that, irrespective of their background, all people have fundamental rights that must be protected. The following is a chronology of the human rights violations faced by the Hindus in East Pakistan from this time onwards. CAA was implemented for the benefit of people like these. From 1947 to 1950, things got really bad for the Hindus in East Pakistan. It started with attacks on Hindus celebrating Janmashtami and Durga Puja, progressed to burning down of their homes on Vijayadashmi, leaving 750 Hindus homeless, and then erupted into full-scale genocide in early 1950. In the capital city of Dhaka, any Hindu found was killed. 50,000 of the 80,000 Hindus were displaced within 7 hours. 90% of Hindu businesses were looted and burned down, and all the mandirs were desecrated. In the district of Sylhet, 203 Hindu villages were devastated and 800 mandirs desecrated. In the district of Barisal, 2,500 Hindus were killed and 650,000 tried to flee. All in all, across East Pakistan, 30 to 50,000 Hindus were killed. 20 to 30 lakh were thrown out of their homes. Thousands of Hindu women were raped and abducted, and thousands of mandirs were desecrated. Only a few lakh Hindus managed to escape to India. Almost 1 crore stayed behind. This was mainly because the Congress Party did not offer them homes, jobs, land, support or even acknowledgement. Now, because these people were mostly agricultural labourers or daily wage earners, this meant they would have no chance for survival in India. The Congress Party, and particularly Gandhi, promised them that they would be fine in East Pakistan, and so they stayed. Those that did come to India became illegal immigrants, starting life from absolute scratch. It took over 70 years for these poor people to become eligible for citizenship in the country that gave birth to their Hindu faith and identity. It is sad to reflect on how few of these people must have been alive in December 2019 to hear the wonderful news. In 1950, the Liaquat-Nehru Pact was signed, confirming the rights of minorities in both Pakistan and India. Nehru naively said that the Hindus of both East and West Pakistan would now be protected. How wrong he was. The 1 crore Hindus of East Pakistan were subjected to continual persecution and riots, culminating in another massive massacre in 1964. This was followed in 1965 with legitimization of Hindu discrimination, namely passing of the Enemy Property Act. In the wake of the 1965 Indo-Pakistan War, enemy meant Hindu. The Enemy Property Act, which was later renamed the Vested Property Act, remained in place until 2001. The Act allowed the land and property of anyone who had left them vacant to be seized and henceforth controlled by the state. This meant that any Hindu who had fled their home out of fear during a riot was essentially saying goodbye to their home, land and all their belongings. In many cases, even remaining in your home was not enough. Forced evictions by officials, forgery of documents, and control of their harvests were widespread techniques used to grab Hindu land illegally. It is estimated that through the Act, between 16 and 26 lakh acres, or 53% of all land owned by Hindus in Bangladesh, was lost to state officials, politicians and terrorists. It is also estimated that the average Hindu household in Bangladesh lost the equivalent of 16 lakh rupees through the Act. Even the National Temple of Bangladesh, Sri Sri Takeshwari Mandir, lost 60% of its land. The continuation of violence and persecution against Hindus in the 1950s and 60s meant tens, if not hundreds of thousands fled to India to become illegal immigrants. Just a few thousand of these poor people, who faced utter horror in their youth for being Hindu, were alive in December 2019 to experience the joy of hearing that they are finally legal in their motherland. The next chapter of terror in the lives of the Hindus of East Pakistan came in 1971 during the Bangladesh Liberation War. India came to the aid of East Pakistan to free it from the terror inflicted by West Pakistan and to establish the country as independent and called Bangladesh. Now let me tell you a shocking statistic. It is well known that the Pakistani army killed 3 million Bangladeshis during 1971. But what isn't well known is that 2.5 million of those 3 million killed were Hindu. Here are some excerpts from the international media and politicians about what happened to the Hindus of Bangladesh in 1971. I saw Hindus hunted from village to village and door to door, shot offhand after a cursory short-arm inspection showed that they were uncircumcised. I have heard the screams of men bludgeoned to death in the compound of the Circuit House, or Civil Administrative Headquarters in Comilla. I have seen truckloads of other human targets and those who had the humanity to try to help them hauled off for disposal under the cover of darkness and curfew, Sunday Times. The Hindus, who account for 3/4 of the refugees and a majority of the dead, have borne the brunt of the Muslim military's hatred, Time magazine. The Hindu community have been robbed of their lands, systematically slaughtered, and in some places painted with yellow patches marked H. All this has been officially sanctioned, ordered and implemented under martial law from Islamabad. US Senator Edward Kennedy. In addition to the 2.5 million Hindus who were killed, another 7 to 8 million Hindus fled to India to also become illegal immigrants for 48 years. Fortunately, I would imagine that at least a few tens of thousands of these Hindus were alive to celebrate finally being given basic rights as Indian citizens in December 2019. In 1988, the Bangladeshi constitution was amended to officially declare Bangladesh as an Islamic state. This was followed by widespread communal violence against Hindus between 1989 and 1992, culminating in the 1992 Lohgang massacre of more than 1,200 Hindu and Buddhist tribes by military, paramilitary and Muslim settlers. As is always the case in these massacres, temples were targeted. 357 were destroyed in that 1 year. Still, the violence did not end. During the 2001, 2008 and 2014 elections, Hindus continued to face terror. In 2001, there were 391 incidents of terror against entire Hindu villages reported. In 2013, there was another wave of anti-Hindu terror attacks across the whole country, resulting in 50 temples and 1,500 Hindu homes being destroyed. In 2014, the Hindu village Malopura was twice targeted by thugs with sticks and bombs. Fearing a third attack, the villagers hid the women and children. This proved very wise because the third attack was by far the worst, leaving any surviving men forced to swim away along the river to escape from gunfire, while their homes were looted and burnt down. In addition to these massacres is day-to-day discrimination. For example, a government directive was passed in the 1980s, making it illegal for people with Hindu names to receive a bank loan. Taxi fares for Hindus are 2 to 3 times the price. Hindu women are not allowed to inherit property, and there is constant disenfranchisement of Hindus from politics. And of course the daily incidents of Hindus being spat at, receiving slurs and being assaulted. It is estimated that between 1971 and 1981, the number of Hindus in Bangladesh decreased by 521 a day. Between 1981 and 1991, the number decreased by 438 a day. And between 1991 and 2001, the number decreased by 767 a day. A European Parliament resolution in 2013 says that an additional 900,000 Hindus went missing from Bangladesh between 2001 and 2011. So as you can see, millions of Hindus have been killed in Bangladesh since 1947. But a very small proportion of these Hindus managed to escape to India, free from religious persecution, yes, but living as illegal immigrants and therefore without any basic rights. CAA 2019 was implemented for the benefit of these people who faced the worst of atrocities while living under Islamic State because they have minority faiths. Without CAA 2019, these people would always have lived a life of uncertainty, unable to return to Bangladesh out of fear for their lives and fear of being raped, for being a non-Muslim living under Islamic State, and at the same time unable to build a stable life in India because they had no rights. You will have noticed that CAA 2019 only applies to those individuals who managed to escape to India by December 2014. This does not mean to say that Hindus and other minority faith believers living under Islamic State in Bangladesh and Pakistan have not been receiving terrible violence and terror for the past 5 years. Far from it. There are regular attacks on these individuals. For example, in 2015, the Hindu village of Dashpara was attacked by a madrasa of students and teachers wielding knives and destroying 7 homes and a temple. The Ain-o Sahish Kendra Legal Aid and Human Rights Organization in Bangladesh describes the current situation in Bangladesh for minorities as, in the last few years, the sense of fear and insecurity has intensified. It's like a double-edged sword. On one side, there are threats of attacks from extremists and powerful sections of society, and on the other, there is fear of offending the state and its agencies. Official records show there were 11,335 religiously motivated attacks against Hindus in Bangladesh in 2016. Examples include the hacking to death of Pandit Ananda Gopal Ganguly, Pandit Shyamamanda Das, Nityaranjan Pandey, and Sri Sadhu Paramananda, and beheading of businessman Tarun Dutta. The images available of dear Tarunji are just too horrific for me to show. Other examples include the looting and destruction of 200 homes and 15 temples in a Hindu village in Brahmanbaria district by a mob of more than 100 Muslims. In 2017, official records show 782 Hindus were forced to leave their homes, 107 were murdered, 31 suffered enforced disappearance, 23 were forced to convert, 15 Hindu women and children were raped, and 235 murtis and temples were vandalized. Remember, these are the official figures only. The unofficial figures would be much, much greater. So while we celebrate CAA for those Hindus who managed to escape to the safety of India and now have rights as Indian citizens, spare a thought for those Hindus who are still living in Bangladesh, living in fear of their lives and facing discrimination on a daily basis. If you have found this video informative, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, English Behen Ke Dil Se, and follow me on Twitter @English_Behen. Please also share this video with those who have been sucked into the media and political tornado of lies and misinterpretations about CAA. The Act will finally bring opportunity and security to the Hindus from Bangladesh who have faced the worst of religious persecution and atrocities. As non-Muslims living in Southeast Asia, they simply have nowhere else to go.